It's the last sprint of the year, right? And as a Scrum Master, you are thinking about what do I do for this last sprint of this year? I have my team member, they are not showing up for meetings. We have less people attending all of our Scrum events. And it's been so difficult for me to even plan for our capacity planner. Do I extend our current sprint to cover for the Christmas and the New Year? Or do I shorten my current sprint so that we can have our New Year and Christmas as a empty sprint? Basically, no sprint planning at all for that sprint. So what's going to happen to the January sprint planning? Or in case, if you're in a company, it's a safe environment, and you have PI planning that's going to be like in the second week of January, what do you do about that as a Scrum Master? Welcome back to Aisha Scrum platform. In today's video, we're going to be covering everything about the last sprint of the year and also upcoming PI planning for January and what happened with all of these attendees. I'm very happy to have you all today. So let's get into it. So for my video today, we're going to be covering what a Scrum Master should do during the end of the year sprint and also upcoming PI planning for January and what's going to happen to our capacity planner. So the first thing I have in my board behind me here is company's policy for end of the year holidays, right? And you're like, oh, what does she mean by company's policy of end of the year holidays? Because believe it or not, in the end of the year holidays, we have the Christmas and then we have the Christmas Eve, although like we don't get paid for Christmas Eve, right? But then again, we have New Year's Eve, we don't get paid for New Year's Eve, right? And then we have New Year's Day. So in our capacity planner, when we're doing our capacity as Scrum Master, we'll only just account for Christmas and New Year's because we know those 2 days are the paid holiday, like federal holiday. And then we all know in reality that a lot of employees will be working on Christmas Eve and also a lot of employees will be working on New Year's Eve, even though we don't get paid for that. So what then happened about that end of the year between December the 23rd all the way to January the 1st? So is most of your team members leaving? So sometimes it's company policy. The reason why I'm saying this is that I've been part of a company whereby starting from the end of before Christmas Eve till like after January, no one is required to work. Like literally, no one can come to work, regardless if you're a developer, you're HR, you're in business, you're in finance, regardless. The company shut down during that end of the year, that 2 weeks end of the year. So as a Scrum Master, let's say you are new to the company, that's something you should start investigating ahead of time. Hopefully like within early December or November, you're asking the team and the leadership, okay, what happened at the end of December? Do we have team members working? Or is it like, I know sometimes people will be out for the holiday, or do we have everyone else working? Or do we just account for people leaving during that time of the year? And sometimes companies will tell you that, oh, we actually shut down starting from December the 20th to January the 1st. Or they'll be like, okay, well, it's our company is actually open. People can choose to work or choose to go for the holiday, right? And let's say your company shut down, and that's something you should know as a Scrum Master, and it's very, very important. Why is it so important, right? Because when you do your capacity planner, you are not only accounting for Christmas Day and New Year's Eve or New Year's Day for the holiday, but you are also accounting for that whole 2 weeks when your company will be shut down. Because then we know that nobody will be working, and hopefully you start rounding up your sprint and rounding up your whole work before you actually close for the year. And it's very important for you, for Scrum Master, to start those conversations early on. Like if you have last minute releases, all those should be accounted for. Last minute of you closing your epic, your stories. And for your last sprint, start reminding the team, start having those conversations during refinement, daily Scrum, sprint planning. All those meetings you've been meeting with your team, you start having those early conversations so that you are not leaving a work with the sprint open, right? Because the goal is for us to hopefully close all that sprint, end it, let's say like December the 22, before the year ends. So that in the January, when we come back, we come into a fresh new sprint and fresh new start. So it's very important for you as a Scrum Master to investigate the company's policy of the end of the year sprint, the end of the year holidays. So that's one thing. So another thing I have in my board behind me is contractor or vendors, because some companies work for vendors, and policies on end of the year holidays, right? So the reason why I'm bringing this up because is that sometimes in the Scrum team, we don't just have the FTEs, meaning full-time employees in a team. We can have some of your team members, they might be contractors, right? And they have their own policy. They abide by your own company's policy, and they also abide by their own company's policy. So let's say you all have a contractor, like a developer that's a contractor in your team, and the developer will tell you that, oh, by the way, in my company, after December the 16th, we are basically shut down. And you'll be like, as a Scrum Master, well, my company, we don't close till December the 23rd. Well, it's important for you to account for that because why? In your capacity planner, you are also identifying all those contractors you have in your team that have to leave earlier or even before your own company. So that you are not expecting that you have all these people to do the work for the sprints, and later on you come at the end, you realize that, oh my God, all these people are leaving, these contractors were not going to be available. So then guess what? You're now in jeopardy of not completing your sprint goal. So that's why it's very important for you to know that your team members, if you know you have some contractors in your team, and for you to investigate and ask about if they are actually working till the end of the year, or what is their own agency or their own company's policy on the end of the year on working on holidays. And for the most part, they will always have more holidays than us. Then they might not be required to work. So for you as a Scrum Master, it's good for you to know all of that. So when you are planning for that sprint, you account for all those extra day off, extra PTOs. So it makes it easier on you committing for that sprint. So the next thing I have in my board is team autonomy on sprint length. That's very, very important, right? Because sometimes people have seen a lot of videos online, people saying that, oh, you should extend your sprints, you should shorten your sprints, or you should basically don't even have sprints between the December and the January holiday. But then who are you as a Scrum Master to make that determination, right? Because you have to be cautious with that, knowing that, do I extend my sprints? Do I shorten the sprint so that we can cover for the holiday? But then again, you have to go back and ask, are we even allowed to extend our sprint? Are we even allowed to shorten our sprint? And why am I even saying this? Because it's very important for you to know that, because sometimes companies, they have like rules set in place, and they have like this, they already like told the stakeholders that they should be expecting this increment by the end of this date, right? And there you are, you the Scrum Master, you go in there telling these team members, oh, by the way, we can just shorten this sprint since everybody will be out anyway. And then later on, you realize that, oh, they actually needed this work. And you shorten the sprints, and now you're unable to complete this valuable increment. And these stakeholders are basically waiting on your team. So it's very, very important to have those conversations first with the leadership, management, and others if you do decide to extend your sprint or shorten the sprint length. And people are like, okay, what do you even mean by extending your sprint or shortening the sprint length? All right, so let's say that you currently you work in a team, right? And your sprint ends on December the 23rd. Your sprint ends on December the 23rd. And you know December the 24th is Christmas Eve, right? And of course, we know that a lot of people will not attend in that, although, right, it's not even accounted for as a holiday in the company. But let's say your company is open, and we know for sure a lot of people won't attend the sprint planning for that week. And instead, what we'll do is to say that, okay, let's just extend our sprints to cover for the Christmas and New Year's, where we're going to have a 4-week sprint instead of us having a 2-week sprint. And they will just have one sprint planning that will cover for everything for that. So before you decide to do that, you should have that conversation with leadership and others in the company instead of you just deciding to go that on your own. But let's say again, you're in a company whereby you have that autonomy, like your team have always decided on when to start or end their sprints. They can start on any day in the week and can end any day in the week. Then for sure, your team can, and you talk to your manager, they'll be like, oh, sure, you guys could do what suits you and do anything that you see fit for your team. Then 100% you can go ahead, and as a team, you bring that discussion. You don't just go ahead as a Scrum Master and just decide that, okay, team, we're gonna be extending the sprint for 1 month. and that's it. We don't do that, right? But instead, what we do is to bring it to the team, right, and have that conversation. So, what do you all think? So, we have so and so holiday, and looking at our capacity planner, we have all these team members. They will be out for the year, and we have only 3 people available. So, do you all think we should use today, since we have almost everyone here, extend our meetings whereby we can cover sprint planning so that we can have instead a 3-week sprint and discuss all of those last minute user stories we can cover for this upcoming sprint? What do you all think? Right? You bring it to the team, because when you all discuss this and have this conversation, you come up to this agreement as a team, then it makes it easier on everyone. It won't look like you are imposing that, okay, we must do this and do that. And if your company do not allow for you guys to extend your sprint, then guess what? Then unfortunately, you have to abide by your company's rules, right? And go by that. So that's why I'm saying that it's very important for you to know the autonomy of how you can extend or shorten your sprint. So the next point I have in my board is when you work in safe, like affecting the agile release train in safe. So it's very important to know that when it comes to safe, sometimes our autonomy can be lessened, right? Because the reason why I'm saying that Scrum Master might not have that leverage to either extend the sprint or shorten the sprint. Because why? You are part of a agile release train. And anything your team do might affect other people and other team in your train. So it's very important for you to know that if you are planning to shorten your sprint, extend your sprint, you should definitely have that conversation with, maybe that's something you can bring up during Scrum of Scrum, right? Where you all can have that conversation. All the way, by the way, Scrum Masters, what are you all doing for these holidays? Do you have most of your team members attending meetings? Or what do you all think about the next sprint planning? It's going to fall between December the 23rd to December the 24th. So what's going to be happening for that sprint? If everyone, maybe you all can come together and agree to either extend your sprint or maybe just keep the same sprint. Maybe too, you're part of a company whereby during PI planning, you already accounted for all those holidays, and by right, they already even extended ahead of time. So then that even makes it even so easy, right? So that it's already been done during PI planning, you just follow through with that. But it's still very important for you to have that conversation for that sprint planning for that holiday heavy sprint, right? Because let's say you have your sprint planning on the 23rd, and that's the sprints need to start on the 23rd, and we already know most people will be out already. So instead, I'll start having my sprint planning maybe on the 16th, on the 17th, before people actually start leaving for the holiday, even though you didn't even try to extend the sprint or not. So it's very important for us to discuss this together as an art, right, with the release train engineer and everyone, before we can decide to either extend or shorten. And hopefully we already accounted for this during PI planning and have it all in the same sprint. So that's what I mean by that. It might affect the whole art if you try to go around extending or moving things around. Because for the most part, for the safe environment that I've been part of, team members start sprints on the same day and end their sprints on the same day. All right. So the next thing I have on my board is PA planning in January. So what happened? So you're looking at your board, your next PI planning coming up, and you see in your calendar you have a PI planning second week of January. And we already know that most team members already started to living and going for holidays starting January the 20th. And most of you won't see people coming back till the end of the first week of January. So what do you do as a Scrum Master? And you have the following upcoming week for PI planning. And hopefully you start using the early on in December, start discussing the PI planning starting in January. And it's very important that you don't just wait. Okay, it's the holiday. All right, we'll just leave PI planning and go about that. When we come back, we'll deal with it. You don't want to do that because a lot of people will still be in the holiday mode. People will still want to be in the mood of going over epics and futures and determining what we're going to be working on next and all of that. Usually the energy will be so low in January. So it's very important for us to use that last minute energy we have in December and take some of them to do some pre-PI planning work, right? One of them being the capacity planning. You can start early on discussing, okay, I already did my capacity planning. This is what we have. I know it's so and so, obviously you're leaving for the whole whole December, you'll be back in the second week of January. You start asking team members, who's going to be here, when, how. Do all your capacity planning, get it out of the way. And hopefully so you can connect with the PO and start discussing your current future and your upcoming futures or epic you'll be working on. Start all those meetings ahead of time. At least do 1 meeting of the pre-PR planning work before you actually leave for the December holiday. So, and the other thing I have in my board is the actual versus committed and velocity / capacity for this end of the year sprint. So when it comes to the velocity / the actual, right? Because we already know that during our capacity planning, we'll come up with this availability and capacity. And then again, if we look at the team's average velocity, if your team do relative estimate, right? You look at also see the availability and the average velocity. So let's say, for example, your team have typical average velocity is 30. And the capacity, when you did your capacity of availability of team members for the next sprint that's about to start, you notice that almost half of your team member will be gone. And you have, let's say you had 20, right? You had 20 from your capacity, from the availability, and your team average velocity is 30, right? So you have these two numbers. The 20, from the capacity, and you have the 30 from the velocity. So you ask yourself, like, okay, which one do we commit to? Like, how much can we commit to for this sprint? It's very important that in this last end of the year sprint, for you to further reduce the capacity, right? Because sometimes people will still be in their holiday mode. The productivity at the end of the year is not the same as the overall of the year. So it's very important for you to further even decrease that velocity. So let's say that we have the 20 and 30. Instead, we're going to be committing to 15 story points. I'll further decrease that. Just say, because why? I don't want us to be in a point that we want to commit over and have all this expectation for our stakeholder. And at the end of the day, we realize that, oh my God, this person didn't tell me they were going to be leaving. Oh, I didn't hear anything from that. And it's just the holiday mode. And of course, if the team are able to complete all of these tasks within the sprint, they can always continue to add on. And as long at the end, we're able to meet our sprint goal, right? So the goal here is for you not to expect too much from your team at the end of the year. And don't to rely too much in your number at the end. Because I guarantee you, the sprints will be very, very low. They might not be able to meet their sprint goal. Especially if you, the Scrum Master, can able to understand that the team member might take some other time to do something else, So it's very important for you to lessen the velocity for the end of the year and the last sprint of the year. So that's the overall takeout from that. So the next thing I have here is the holiday celebration. So I have someone recently send me an email online, was asking me, was like, Aisha, so my company, we have holiday celebration. Our arts agile release stream, we have our holiday celebration. And some teams have introduced us to our holiday celebration. So do I account capacity for all of these holiday celebrations? What do you all think, right? Comment down below, right? Have your team always accounted for time from your capacity from all of this holiday celebration or thank you celebration, right? The end of the year celebrations or award celebration, that always these extra meetings that we go through, extra end of the year meetings, all these extra meetings, because we all know that at the end of the year, there's a lot of meetings we attend. It's more than even our regular meetings that we do as a team. So do you account for capacity for all those extra meetings? Tell me, what do you all think? What have you all been doing? Comment down below. Let me know what you've been doing. And I basically tell this team member that it depends, right? So let's say you work in a company, right? They are metric driven. What do I mean metric driven? Whereby it means that like every two weeks, you have leadership and everyone asking you, oh, what's your team velocity? What's the available capacity? How do you come up with this estimate? How do you come up with that? And they basically want to see like all these numbers and all these metrics is very important because of budgeting, right? Because sometimes they look at some companies, I know people are, oh, Aisha, really, you're not supposed to do that, but well, you'll be surprised. Some companies do that. They use all these metrics and all this number availability of resources. They use all of this to help them with give or determine how much money they'll give to a particular project, right? Let's say you work in a company like that and they are very metric driven. In that case, I, as a Scrum Master, I am 100% accounting for all those extra meetings. Because why? Because it won't look like my team is not doing work and my team are required to attend all of these meetings. So I'm also saying that all of these extra meetings that we are attending, it's also affecting my team productivity, right? Because my team won't have time to do their work. Because why? We are required to go to all of these meetings and all of this celebration. And it's nice, right? It's very nice for us to attend all of those meetings. I will be accounting for time for all those meetings we are attending. And I will subtract the remaining so we can use that to commit for work for that sprint. So yes, for sure. But let's say the second scenario is you work in a company whereby they are very understanding. They understand when the team and they trust the team. The team do their work. They regardless of how they come to the end goal, they are able to deliver their value and they don't too care about these numbers up and forward. Then of course I won't be sitting there myself to be counting numbers or counting time of this meetings or that meeting. Instead, I'll be also be flexible because then I will tell the team, okay, remember team, we have this holiday meeting here. We have that holiday celebration there. We have to attend this award ceremony celebration there and here. So just be mindful as you all commit to this sprint, right? Just to give a reminder to your team. So in that case, I am not taking out anything. Because why? At the end of the day, my company's valued most what my team actually delivering their incremental value over worrying about numbers. So yeah, so that's just the best two scenario that I will encourage you or advise for you to do either or based on the nature of your work. And as a Scrum Master, do not forget to do your end of the year celebration. Don't forget to celebrate with your team, right? You can do like a end of the year celebration. Let's say you have like two teams and they are working on the same project. For sure, you can bring them all together, right? And you put them all together and have some holiday meetings, holiday celebrations. Everyone can bring lunch, right? If you're working in a virtual world in a remote environment, you can play some scavenger hunt game. You can play like multiple different games as a team. About holiday, you can do winning prize if your company allows, right? Celebrate with your team. Make it a habit whereby you can do that end of the year celebration, award and recognition too. That team member that always attended meeting earlier than anybody else, you can recognize them. That team member that's always willing to jump up and help and assist everyone, you can recognize them, right? And that team member that's always willing to call out all those anti-patterns or call out all things that we're doing that's not right, we celebrate everything. And also don't forget to celebrate everyone as a team. And tell me, what you all have been doing currently in your company for the end of the year sprint. Did your team decide to extend your sprints to a 3-week sprint to cover for the whole holiday? Or did your team just did like a sprint to end on the 23rd and for the Christmas and holiday and New Year's, you have like no sprint and you plan to start fresh in January? So what did you all decide to do as a team? Comment down below and let me know. I'm very curious to see what you all are doing in your company. And if you missed my last video on how to create a dashboard and how to link up dependency and follow up on dependency, and comments down below, and also watch my Jira videos, or my Jira training videos. It's also linked down below to see all of that. Thank you all. I very appreciate you all for joining me, and all my new subscribers. I'm very happy to have you all. This is a place where we learn about everything Agile and Scrum and help you how you can exceed in your job. And Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and hope to see you all again